In this video, we're going to be talking about building custom functions in Excel. And functions are similar to the public subroutines and private subroutines that we've been writing in all of our other videos. The primary difference is that a function will actually return a value as the output of the function. And this means we can call our functions in our actual cells on Excel rather than building a subroutine that has to be triggered by a button or something like that. So for example, if we wanted to create a column over here that says hourly rate, and then maybe we want to have another column that says hours worked, and a third column that says total pay. And we'll go ahead and we'll just pick some numbers for these. And we'll say this person worked only 8 hours, this person worked 10 hours, so they should probably get a little bit of overtime pay, and this person worked 12 hours, so they should definitely be getting overtime pay. So it would be a little hard for us to right now just use regular functions here, and a function again is something like if I typed sum here. This sum is one of Excel's internal functions that they already have written. So we can build our own function that will serve a purpose like sum does, but we can call it out with all of the custom code in it to execute whatever we want it to execute. So in this case, it would be hard for us to determine what this person's total pay is compared to this person, because this person has worked 2 hours of overtime, and maybe they get a little bit extra pay for working that 2 hours of overtime. So this wouldn't be as easy as just saying, we're going to take their hourly rate times their hours worked. Because if we do this, this person isn't getting any extra pay for their extra time that they've worked. So instead, we're going to build a custom function that will do this for us. So we're going to go over to the Developer tab and open up our Visual Basic window. Now, if you don't have a module in your code already, you can go to Insert, Module, or if you do have a module, you can double click on it or right click View Code to open it up. And you'll notice I'm working in an Excel file that we built previously when we were building forms and learning about forms. You can just keep these 3 columns and create your own Excel file if you don't want to have to work from a pre-existing file, and this will still work the same way. So what we're going to type is function. And notice we're using function instead of any sort of subroutine because, again, we're interested in creating a custom function, not a subroutine. Then we'll type the name of the function. So I'm just going to call this full pay. And now we're going to create the inputs for this function. So first I'm going to create a variable, we'll say P as double. And this will be how much they get paid per hour. And then I'm going to create another variable, H, as double, which will be the number of hours that they worked. And now the key to remember about functions is this full pay is actually going to be a variable. This is going to be the output of your function. And so we need to tell the system what is full pay. And in this case, we're going to say full pay is also double. And this just means a number. We're going to be doing math with this, so we want to make sure we carry our decimals and all of that. And that's why I'm using double. And you can go back and check a previous video where we talked about variable types if you're not familiar with double versus string or anything like that. Now the first thing we want to check if the number of hours that they worked, which will be H, is greater than 8. And I'm going to go ahead and put my end if so I don't forget it later. So if they did work more than 8 hours, then we know they should get overtime pay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out what their pay should have been for the regular 8 hours that they worked, their first 8 hours. So we'll say full pay initially is just going to be 8 times the hourly rate that they make, which is our variable P. So now I know I've accounted for their first 8 hours of pay, and I only want them to get overtime pay for the extra hours that they worked. So now I'm going to adjust that full pay value. And I'm going to say, okay, I want you to keep that value that we just calculated, how much they would have been paid for their regular 8 hours. And this time I'm going to add in their total number of hours that they worked, subtract out the initial 8 hours. So now I know I'm looking at only the extra hours that they worked that day. I'm going to times that by their hourly pay, And this time I'm going to give them a little bump, and we'll use 1.5 just as an example. So they should be getting extra pay, half of their hourly rate extra for each hour that they worked overtime. Close out my parentheses and I'll hit enter. Now I am going to use an else here, and that's because we also want to account for if they just worked a regular 8 hours. So we'll say regular pay. And this time our full pay would be just the regular pay rate times the number of hours that they worked. So all in all, this function should look at how many hours they worked initially. If they worked more than 8 hours, we're going to give them overtime pay. So first we're going to figure out what they should be paid for the first 8 hours they worked. Then we're going to figure out what they should be paid for the extra hours that they worked and add that to the original 8 hours worth of pay. If they didn't work more than 8 hours, so if they worked 8 hours or less, then we're just going to take their pay rate and multiply it by the number of hours that they worked. So now I'm going to go ahead and save this and go back to my Excel file. Now in the total pay column here, I'm going to type equals and then the name of our custom function, which was full pay. And we'll see it actually does pop up in this function list. So we can see Excel does recognize that we have created this custom function. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the hourly rate and then the hours that they worked. In that order, because that's the order that I built into that custom function. And hit enter. And we can see this person only worked 8 hours, so they're not getting any overtime pay. It's just 10 times 8, which is 80. But this person did work extra hours. They worked 2 extra hours. So when we look at their hourly rate, we can notice they're actually making a little bit more than just 10 times 15. They're making extra pay to account for those extra hours that they worked. And the same with this person. And if I come back through and I change this to say 10, we can see their pay will adjust automatically. So we've built this custom function now to go ahead and account for whether or not our employees worked a regular 8-hour day, if they worked overtime, and automatically calculate that for us. And we can build these custom functions and take advantage of them to avoid having to write multiple if statements or nested if statements into our formula box up here and avoid creating huge nasty formulas that exist in the formula bar that are hard to keep track of. Instead, we can just create those custom functions in VBA and automatically run all those calculations in the background. So building custom functions is a super helpful tool. You should definitely take advantage of custom functions to make sure your formulas aren't huge and overwhelming, and you can build in some error proofing into your custom functions as well. So that's what we learned about in this video, was building custom functions and how helpful they can be.